The Tom Daniel Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniel Show.
You're listening to The Tom Daniel Show, and I'm your host, Tom Daniel. Hey, I feel like starting with a bold statement today, so here goes. Southerners have a built-in sense of melody because of the way we talk. I'm going to say that again. Southerners have a built-in sense of melody because of the way we talk. Why? Why do Southerners sound like we're singing when we talk? I mean, Northerners comment on it all the time. They'll say the Southern accent is slow or relaxed or melodic if they're trying to be nice. Sometimes they'll describe it as a drawl, and sometimes they'll even say it sounds musical. That is, if they're being polite. But most of the time, Northerners are not polite. They're mocking and derisive of the Southern accent, and I think it's because they know deep down that their own accent sucks. But anyway, if speech sounds musical, that means it's doing something unusual with pitch, the rising and falling of the voice. And here's the big question I really want to explore today. Why does Southern English sound more musical than other American accents? Why does everyday speech in the South seem to glide, stretch, and bend in ways that resemble singing? Part of the answer may lie thousands of miles away across the Atlantic Ocean in the tonal languages of West Africa. Today we're going to explore how the collision between English speech patterns and African tonal language traditions helped produce one of the most distinctive sounds in the English-speaking world, the Southern accent. And in the process, we'll discover something fascinating. The Southern accent may not just be an accent. It may be the audible trace of one of the most remarkable cultural conversations in human history. So, what is a tonal language? Now, to understand what might have happened in the American South, we first need to talk about how languages work. Most English speakers assume that words are defined by their spelling and pronunciation, the consonants and vowels that make them up. But in many languages around the world, pitch also carries meaning, and those are called tonal languages. The most recognizable tonal language is probably Mandarin Chinese. I mean, for example, the capital of China is Beijing. Beijing. I mean, that's how Americans say it, Beijing. But in Mandarin Chinese, it's correctly pronounced Beijing. Beijing. Do you hear that? It's two separate pitches, a low one and a high one. Beijing. Now, it's not an exact pitch. There are Chinese people with low voices and high voices like everybody else, so the pitches aren't based on an exact frequency like a B flat or an F sharp. And it's also not an exact interval between the pitches like a perfect fourth or a minor third. It's just a low pitch and a high pitch. Beijing. The key concept is that it ranges from the bottom of a person's normal speaking range to the top. The word ma, for example, in Mandarin Chinese has 5 different meanings. A simple 2-letter word, ma, has 5 different meanings in Mandarin Chinese, depending on the pitch. It could mean mother, it could mean hemp, horse, scold, or turning a sentence into a question. Now, in a tonal language, the pitch of a syllable, whether the voice rises, falls, or stays level, can completely change the meaning of a word. And this is extremely common all over West Africa. Languages like Yoruba, Igbo, Ewe, Akan, and Hausa all use pitch as part of their basic linguistic structure. And these languages are all spoken in Nigeria, Niger, Benin, Togo, Ghana, the Ivory Coast, Cameroon, Chad, Sudan, all over West Africa. Now let me give you a simplified example. In the Igbo language spoken in southeastern Nigeria, there is a 2-syllable word, aqua. If you spelled it, it's A-K-W-A, aqua. Now, here's the remarkable part. If the first syllable is high and the second syllable is low, aqua. The word means cloth. But if you reverse the pitches, low in the first syllable and high on the second one, aqua, the exact same word suddenly now means egg. And if you change the pitch again so that both syllables are high, aqua, that means cry. And if you have both syllables with a low pitch, aqua, then that word means bed. Same consonants, same vowels, same pronunciation. The only thing that changes is the pitch pattern of the voice. And that pitch pattern completely changes the meaning of the word. In fact, when linguists analyze the word more closely, they find even more possibilities because a pitch can move within a syllable, rising or falling, and this simple two-syllable word can produce 7 different meanings depending entirely on how it is spoken. Now you notice what's happening here? The word isn't being pronounced differently. It's just being spoken differently, which is what makes all the difference in the world. Because in tonal languages, pitch is not a decoration. It's not an emotion. It's meaning. So speakers of tonal languages grow up with an extremely refined awareness of pitch, not in music, but in ordinary speech. They hear meaning in the rise and fall of the voice. Pitch is not decorative, it's semantic. It carries information. And that habit of hearing and producing pitch patterns becomes deeply ingrained from childhood. English, however, works very differently. English is what linguists call a stress accent language. In English, meaning is usually determined by things like word order, sentence structure, and syllable stress. For example, consider the word record. Now, that can either be pronounced as record or as record. If you say record with stress on the first syllable, it's a noun. It's a record album. But if you say record with stress on the second syllable, it becomes a verb. You have recorded something. Now, notice something important here. The meaning changes because of stress on the syllable, not because of pitch. English speakers certainly use pitch for emphasis or emotion, but not meaning. So compared to tonal languages, English speech tends to be relatively flat and stress-driven rather than pitch-driven. But that changes when the languages of two cultures from two different continents come into contact with each other. As I just said, in English, pitch doesn't determine the dictionary meaning of a word, but it does when you come south. Now, beginning in the early 17th century, millions of Africans were brought to the American South. They arrived speaking dozens of different languages, many of which were tonal. In order to survive in their new environment, these speakers had to learn English. But learning a second language is never a perfectly neutral process. I mean, when people learn a new language, they almost always carry over habits from their old one. I mean, they transfer the rhythms, the intonation patterns, vowel shapes, pitch contours. This phenomenon is called language transfer, and it happens everywhere in the world. French speakers learning English carry French rhythms into their English. They sound French even though they're speaking English. Spanish speakers carry Spanish vowel patterns so that they speak English with a Spanish accent. And speakers of tonal languages do the exact same thing. They carry their pitch awareness into whatever language they learn. So when Africans learned English in the American South, they didn't simply adopt English pronunciation as it existed in Britain. No, instead, English vocabulary was filtered through African prosodic habits, pitch awareness, melody contour, elastic timing. The Africans turned English into a regionally tonal dialect. Now, over time, those speech habits began to interact with the English dialects already present in the South, especially the ballad-driven speech patterns of settlers from the British Isles. And what emerged was something new. When those two language patterns collided with each other, they produced the Southern accent. You're listening to The Tom Daniels Show, and we'll be right back.
What are you waiting for?
What are you waiting for?
The Tom Daniels Show.
What are you waiting for?
The Tom Daniels Show.
What are you waiting for? Tom Daniels Show.
What are you waiting for?
The Tom Daniels Show.
Welcome back to the Tom Daniels Show. I was ready to start clapping and singing along with that gospel version of our theme song. Mary Mac is the world's most perfect man. Now, we've been talking about why the Southern accent sounds so musical. If you listen carefully to Southern speech, several distinctive features stand out. For one thing, Southern English often uses long pitch contours. Instead of saying a word on one steady pitch, the voice glides upward or downward across the syllable. I mean, you hear this in everyday words like well, W-E-L-L, well. That could either mean the place where you keep your water, well, or it could also mean that how you feel well. But it also can be an interjection. There's, well, that means spit it out. There's, well, that means I'm probably lying. There's, well, I've never been so insulted. There's, well, y'all want to hear something juicy? And then there's, well, I don't know about that. In a Southern accent, that word does not stay flat. It rises, dips, and stretches. The voice moves like a little musical melody. And then second, Southern speech frequently lengthens the vowels. Words that might be spoken quickly elsewhere become extended and curved in the South. Right might become something closer to right. Now that's not laziness. That's a form of pitch movement across the vowel. There's actually a specific linguistic feature that captures this perfectly. And once you hear it, you'll never miss it again. Linguists refer to it as the Southern triphthong. Now, that's a technical word, but the idea is simple. A diphthong is a vowel that moves between two positions, like the vowel sound in the word boy, where the mouth moves from O to E, boy, boy. A triphthong moves across three vowel positions instead of two. And Southern speech does this constantly. Just go back to that word well. In many parts of the United States, it's pronounced quickly. It's just, well, that's it. But in the South, that word becomes whale. 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 One syllable, three distinct vowel movements. And here's the key point. The movement's not just vowel shape, it's pitch movement. The pitch changes. It rises, dips, rises again across the syllable. It behaves almost like a little musical phrase. So what sounds like a drawl is actually something much more precise. It's a vowel traveling through several pitch and vowel positions before it resolves, which is exactly what you hear in a melody. When everyday speech already stretches vowels across several pitches, it shouldn't surprise us that Southern singing does the exact same thing. Southern speech often contains something that linguists call melismatic speech. Now, melisma is when a single syllable travels across several pitches. And you hear this constantly in Southern singing traditions. Blues singers do it. Gospel singers do it. Field hollers famously stretch a single syllable across several different pitches. But if you listen carefully, you'll notice something fascinating. Those same pitch glides exist in Southern conversation. We don't just sing that way, we talk that way. The musical style of Southern singing mirrors the musical behavior of Southern speech. Now, you might wonder why these features persisted so strongly in the South. The answer likely has to do with social conditions. I mean, the American South historically maintained very large rural populations. long-term contact between cultural groups, and a deeply oral culture. Speech patterns were transmitted face-to-face rather than standardized through formal education or mass media. That allowed local speech habits to stabilize and spread across communities in the South. And because daily life often brought people from different backgrounds into close contact, like in farms, fields, churches, kitchens, markets, linguistic influence moved in both directions. This was not simply one group speaking and another one copying. It was shared evolution of speech. Over generations, these pitch patterns became embedded in what we now recognize as the Southern accent. Not black speech, not white speech, but Southern speech. Why do Northerners sound so different? Northern American English developed under totally different conditions. Northern cities experienced massive immigration from Europe throughout the 19th century. Urban life, industrial work, public school, all encouraged speech to move toward a more standardized pattern. Northern dialects tend to have a quicker tempo, shorter vowels, flatter pitch contours. Southern speech, by contrast, retained the slow pacing and the longer pitch movements. The result is that Southern English often sounds more melodic, even when nobody's really even trying to be musical. The musicality is just built in. And now we arrive at something truly remarkable. If everyday speech in the South already contains pitch glides, stretched vowels, and rhythmic flexibility, then singing in the South will naturally reflect the same features. Of course it does. When you listen to Southern music, that's what you're hearing. Blues singers bend their notes. Gospel singers stretch syllables across several pitches. Country singers slide back and forth between tones. Soul singers shape their phrases like they're giving a sermon. All of these musical traits mirror something deeper than just style. They mirror the prosody of Southern speech. Music didn't invent these habits. The accent did. And have you ever noticed that British musicians like the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, Tom Jones, Joe Cocker, and even Adele sing with a Southern accent? Have you ever noticed that? Well, they don't talk like that, but they certainly do sing that way. That's because they're trying to sound authentic to the music. And 20th century popular music is Southern. Case closed. So why does Southern speech sound musical? Because the Southern voice is the product of a remarkable linguistic encounter. On one side were the storytelling ballad rhythms of English, Scottish, and Irish speech. And on the other side were the tonal pitch patterns of West African languages. When those two worlds met in the American South, the result was something entirely new. A dialect of English with a distinctive melodic contour. A way of speaking that bends, stretches, and glides in ways that resembles music. In the Southern voice, speech and song live very close to each other. Southerners have a built-in sense of melody because of the way we talk. This has been The Tom Daniels Show. And just as a reminder, I publish essays at my Substack site called the Academy of Southern Music, with new essays every Tuesday. I also publish another podcast called Requiem Radio, where music bleeds into the supernatural, with new episodes every Friday. Keep listening and keep learning.
Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Keep listening, keep learning. The Tom Daniels Show. Take a break from your usual routine and tune in to the Tom Daniels Show. You'll discover the world of melodies and stories that you might not know. Keep listening,
Show.